The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone. Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon, depending upon wherever you log in from. We have very limited participants right now, so let's give maybe 5 more minutes for people to log in so that we start our session today. Hi everyone. Please hold on. We are just waiting for a couple more minutes for others to join. Hi everyone. Let's start the session for today. Again, hi again. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. So today we are here to discuss about AI and ML in cybersecurity. And what you are seeing right now is the Edureka webpage, where you can actually find different programs in cybersecurity or AI and ML or any other technology you are interested in. Just to give you a screenshot of how it looks like. And then moving on to today's topic, it's about how we are going to discuss on the most talked topic called AI and ML. Most of you know about it, and still we are going to discuss today on how we can use it in cybersecurity, right? So before I go there, let me just speak about myself a little. I am Satyoti Divadari. I'm principal partner advisor as well as chief cybersecurity architect in Micro Focus. Also, global advisory board member in EC Council and chairman of Cloud Security Alliance in Bangalore. And I'm happy to mentor men and women in cybersecurity, whoever is interested to pursue their career in cybersecurity, because there are so many positions and there are very few people who are actually joining that career. Right? I don't want to speak about my long career, but in brief, I do have sufficient experience in cybersecurity, worked in multiple industries like finance, telecom, BPO, media, and IT industries. Coming to the agenda today, we are going to discuss on these 6 elements. One is on what is artificial intelligence, what is AI actually, and then we switch gears on speaking about threat landscape and what type of attacks are there in cybersecurity, and why do we actually go for artificial intelligence? Is it not sufficient for human to address these kind of problems? What is that causing us to go for AI or ML? So that's the part which we will figure out. And then we also look for what does AI mean in cybersecurity, and how do we apply AI ML in cybersecurity? What are the use cases we can use? And then how in future this technology could be used in cyber, right? So those are my key items which we want to cover today, but I just want to know, do we have any other thoughts or ideas which you want to get? Do you have any expectations on this session so that we can cover it? You can just text your expectation in the question window so that we'll cover it in the session. Okay. So whenever you feel like asking a question or you have a comment, just keep it in the question tag. If you like to ask some query immediately, just raise your hand so that I'll see it and answer it as quickly as I can, so that we are not waiting for till the end to come back, right? Just I ask you one question to you all. What is artificial intelligence? What do you think about artificial intelligence and how it plays a role in cybersecurity? Anyone, can you answer in few text in the questions section? No, but for some reason I'm not seeing your comments. What does AI ML means to you? That's great. So automation of software, correct. Second, creating a smart system which can take decision on past data. Putting human intelligence in computer is AI. Wonderful. Those are great answers. Patterns could be used for predicting these things. Gyanendra Kumar. Thank you, Carol, Gyanendra, and Jatin. So let's go to the topic. I think you know, at least some of you already know it. And I'll try to cover as much as I can, but if you believe you have a better comment to add, just please add into this question answer section so that we take it to the larger audience. Yeah. Coming back to the topic, right? Topic of today. Okay. So that's what it is. Yeah. So I would have figured out a large, what we can say, onion. Let's think about an onion, right? With multiple layers. What you see above is artificial intelligence. How it arrives at is actually by doing machine learning. And deep learning is much detailed, and it is a subset of machine learning, but it is actually much deeper and goes with more detailing than the normal machine learning. Just keep it that way. Keep it simple to understand, right? So there is another way of seeing it is that AI is a technique that enables machines to mimic human behavior. I might agree, because after all, AI is designed by human, right? We try to mimic ourselves. This is how we do, right? The best way to do it is, okay, what are the things I can do repeatedly? If I want to repeat something, let me do by a machine instead of me doing it. Or if I can automate something, give it to a machine so that it can do it, you know. Or can somebody take care of this routine task which I am doing? Can a machine can do it? Okay, then that has been assigned to a robot or a automation engine. So you think about AI as a technique which is actually trying to build intelligence around various, by building different models, and then identifying pattern and answering a problem, or creating a solution in its own way. There are two ways of doing it. One is supervised learning and unsupervised learning. Anyone knows what is supervised learning? Maybe you can suggest the answer. What is supervised learning and what is unsupervised learning? Okay, maybe not. So let me just answer it myself. Yeah, great, Anshu. Anshu says teaching through data sets. That is actually supervised learning. Revati says supervised is labeling. Data which is labeled is supervised. Trained data is supervised. Unsupervised is no label data. What is unsupervised means actually the machine is learning the algorithms by itself, building the models and patterns by itself, and making the decisions also by itself, right? It gives the outcome by learning by itself. That is unsupervised learning. So those are the two techniques just for you to understand. So these are tidbits, you know it. I'm just, that is there for reference. So for a definition, artificial intelligence is exhibited by machines, after all, obviously, because it's artificial. It is not human. So you can think about alternatively, these are agents, artificial agents, think about a bot or a robot or automation engine, whatever the way you call it. These are the intelligent agents trying to perceive the environment. Environment could be the data set, environment could be the data models which you are adding, and then patterns you are adding. Based on that, it builds its own environment and then provides certain action. And then while doing these three, this is perception. First is observation, observing the data, perception, and then building an environment, and then based on that are doing certain action to maximize its chances at some goal, right? That is artificial intelligence at a high level, right? Anyone have any better ideas? Maybe what could be better way to describe what is AI? Okay, let's move on. So, okay, let's say take a model, right? So what is machine learning in that case? So there is an example here. There used to be another cute example. Sorry. Okay. So you see this, you might see in multiple patterns here. Think about a artificial engine trying to figure out different patterns. Let's say the first column, right? Is it a bread or is it a animal? It's trying to figure out. So think about, this is a bread. The second one is a bread, and fourth one is a bread. So other ones are animals. As a human, you understand because you have a pattern, you understand how it looks like, how the bread looks like. But machine can understand only by the pattern it's recognizing. It has two eyes, one nose and mouth. So here if you see again, two eyes, one nose and mouth. Seems like the dog, right? The next one you see, is it actually a real dog, or is it a soft toy, or is it actually chicken lollipop, right? It's very difficult to understand for the machine. It might be able to at a certain level of accuracy, right? And think about this, right? Bread and the dog, right? So to actually to reach at a stage where machine is able to recognize the pattern in the certain way with around 99% or 99.9% of accuracy, you might need to send or teach the machine with thousands or multiple thousands of images to get that kind of accuracy, right? So otherwise, there is a chance that there is a high chance that it can actually recognize a biscuit as a beautiful dog, you know. So it's all about what you teach, how it learns. As much it learns, based on that, its intelligence grows, right? Just to keep it simple, the algorithm is developed based on the trained data, the data sets you give it. And then based on that, it understands and then develops a model and creates a pattern. And based on that, it comes to some certain conclusion, right? So that is what it is all about, machine learning, right? Hope that answers, or anybody have any questions on the concept? Hope not. Okay. So moving on to the next. Okay. Now we are going to this cyber space, right? So what is so complicated in threat landscape? What kind of attacks are coming today that we are not able to understand? So first, for those people who don't understand what is threat landscape, let's know this. So threat landscape is actually basically the collection of threats. So yeah, let me give you an example, right? So how can I give you a threat example right now is like threat actors are always there. They are those which may or may not impact you, but they do exist. So right, think about this way as a weather pattern. Let me think as a weather pattern which is everybody understands. And then, I mean, raining when you are actually going to meet your girlfriend for a first date. Yeah. So the threat is that rain comes and your beautiful shirt gets wet, right? So the threat actor here is rain. The risk is that you get drenched. And then uh, the level of threat is depending upon the probability of rain. You understand that, I guess, right? The risk of you getting drenched depending upon whether you have any controls. What kind of controls? Let's think about it. So do you have a car? Okay, you are inside the car, even it trenches, your suit is perfect and you can go to the date, right? Unharmed. You don't care about this threat actor called rain, right? But however, you don't have a car, you are just walking on the road. You don't have any kind of control action, right? And it could be mitigated by another, that's what it's called vulnerability, right? The vulnerability is actually possibility of getting affected by a threat actor is vulnerability, right? So I know I am pushing a lot of terminologies here. The terms are threat, vulnerability, risk. These are the three things you always observe. So you cannot eliminate a threat, they are always there. How you will reduce is by doing some control action, and they are eliminating the vulnerability itself, right? And overall impact which occur based on the threat is called risk, right? Hope that understand. Yeah, somebody given an example called umbrella. Umbrella is a beautiful control action, right? So you are walking on the road and you have an umbrella, so you put it on, so at least your shirt is covered and probably the shoes are not as neat as they is, but you are able to cover the risk, mitigate the risk to certain extent, right? So that's how you understand the basics of threat actor, risk, and vulnerability, right? Just a general concept. Hope you got it, right? Anybody have any doubts on the terminology of threat, risk, vulnerability? Yeah, anybody have anything? Just ping me. How can we use these analogies for threats? Okay, let me give a analogy on bugs, right? Bugs is application bugs. Application bug, somebody have written an application with so many bugs, and they didn't fix it. And that application bug can result into root access, let's say, onto the system, right? So what you are doing right now is through this bug, threat actor can directly access the root, right? System root. So threat actor here is a hacker, let's say, or a person who is interested to log into a system. Let's say the system is here is a financial system, right? So this is what we let's take it as a scenario. So the threat actor is a hacker, right, who has an intent to attack and get some kind of financial information and post it on public page, right? That is the threat actor. And then what is the vulnerability here is the application vulnerability, which is a bug, a software bug, right, which was not fixed. So using this bug, the actor can directly log into the root of financial system and go back with that back. And he's actually successfully got hold of the information without having proper access onto the financial system, right? So that is the IT security scenario, how you can understand these three terms. The risk here is the data exfiltration or data leakage, or you can think about financial loss, financial suit. It depends upon the regulations, regulatory non-compliance. All these are risks, right? So threat actors are like actors who are interested or intended to harm you, and vulnerabilities here are open bugs or patches which were not fixed, right? Just an example. Yeah, got it. So yeah, get all sensitive data, right, Anita? You're right. Yeah, because the bugs were not fixed, the system is open, the probability increased. So think about this, right? The probability factor always adjusts because the threat actor always present. The threat actor never goes away. They are always there. Just understand that. The probability of getting attacked increases when there is a bug. The probability will reduce when this is fixed. Yeah, that's how we need to see the threat landscape as. Right? Hope you got the fundamentals correct. Any questions there? Cool. Threat actors are able to bypass the network, correct. And they are able to bypass not just the network, they are able to bypass the access management. They might have given multi-layer network access, etc. Those are all passed away. Okay, so let's understand some basics of the cybersecurity. For those who don't understand, we added few awareness sessions to explain what kind of cybersecurity threats exist. So one of that is malware, right? So malware could be 5 types: computer virus, it could be a spyware, adware, worm, or a Trojan horse. So you might understand virus. I think most of you all know. Spyware is something which comes and sits on your machine and continuously records what you're doing. It doesn't do anything except for recording, right? It doesn't do any kind of what you can say reactive steps. It just sits there, slowly understands and records everything and sends it back to the system. Adware is actually a kind of a tool which continuously sends ads so that the revenue increases. Worms are again a silent type like spyware, but only thing is worms are designed to move from one system to other system. They find, let's say there is a weak internal system which is actually sitting in your what you can say local segment. With that, it actually adds a worm through which they move past. Let's say there is a firewall in between, and they pass through that because it's coming from this machine, which is an authenticated machine or authorized machine, to access a server behind the firewall, let's say, right? So this worm, what this worm can do is, since it has access to this machine, it can pass on that through a what we can say properly authorized connection to pass on that worm all the way to the systems behind multi-layer defense systems, right? So it was able to penetrate through the defense mechanisms and then pass it on, right? It could be it might be passing a virus, it might be passing a spyware or an adware. A worm is a model through which the virus passes. Yeah. And Trojan horse is something which, you know, it looks like horse, but practically inside there is an army full actually came here to destroy you. So think in that way. So Trojan horses are, they look something, and inside there will be worms or any of these worms or virus or spyware or anything, right? All these things are called malware, which are quite common nowadays, and they're increasing day by day, considering the increased expansion of digital era, right? Any questions there? I got something. Threat actors are okay. Multiple system worms can pass through the mail. Yes, Akash. Worms can certainly pass through the mail. Actually, worms can be added through a mail. So somebody sends you a mail in which there might be a zip file or a PDF file. Inside that there might be a worm, which actually comes and gets implemented on your system. Once your system is on the network, it will further penetrate into all the trusted systems on your network. Yeah? So that's the way it works. Thanks for that. Any other comments, questions? Okay. So yeah, see, I think Akash already understood this next slide and spoke about it, right? It can come through email, it can come through a software download, it could be a OS vulnerability. How the software download works, when you're downloading, there is always two buttons, you know. Do you want to install the full install or custom install? In full install, generally there will be two buttons. It says, second button is about, I'm also installing another application, are you okay with it? Generally we have an attitude of just pressing the next button, right? So we end up actually installing something which we do not want. It could be an adware, practically. Adware, Anita says adware is announces that there is a thread. So there are multiple ways adware works. So adware works in, one is sending ads, that's one. Another type of adware is actually to understand the behavior. So behavior is, let's say Anita reads a newspaper in the morning, right? Anita actually watches videos in the afternoon, and then Anita actually works in the evening, right? So it has a schedule of morning, evening, and night, and actually plans your ads accordingly, right? So it's actually sending back some analytics to understand the behaviors, etc. So this all happens through adware, right? So it is not a malware. It is not actually doing anything around your system, or it's not actually corrupting, or it's not doing any virus or malware. But what it is doing is trying to generate business through cookies. By the way, how the adware works is either through cookies or through session data, etc. So majorly cookies works on adware. Yeah. Hope that clarifies, Anita. Okay, next. Let's move next. So how do you stop it, right? So best way to stop is when you see a mail, look for suspicious links, right? I'll just give you an example. You might have seen these duplicate T-shirts, right? It looks like Nike, but it is not Nike, right? So it's supposed to be Nike is Nike, right? So they might have actually instead of I, they might have made L, right? They do that. So it's almost similar way the mails come, right? It looks really what we can say actual looking, but they are not. Let's say it is coming from HR of your organization. It will be said HR of Microsoft, right? But actually speaking, in the Microsoft, there might be one more I added, but you actually don't see that spelling You think that it came from Microsoft and proceed. So the idea here, the suspicious links or a phishing, we are going to read that later. Phishing is the way in which most malware and most of the adware, even the data exfiltration happens through the suspicious links and the mails, right? Just that's why it's important for you to carefully watch what link you are clicking and what mail you are downloading, and ensure that you are only downloading those softwares or attachments when it is coming from a genuine email ID which you know already, right? Okay, some of the spam mails could be those. Yes, you're right. I'm not getting the name, but yes, some of the spam mails could be those. So they do send these spam mails. So you might have observed that the email security of your organization might have already identified it as a spam in some cases, but in other cases we will not be able to, systems will not be able to figure out that as a spam, but it is spam because it's genuine looking, right? So it might have passed through that. So that's why it's important that end users should know about this. Okay, so next, on the technical side, not as the user aspect, on the technical aspect, updating a firewall is a great idea. So because if you are not updating the firewall constantly, there is a chance that there are a lot of malware might have passed through. So that's another way of doing it. And another one is it's important that your patches you're installing on your systems, whether it is Windows, Mac, whatever the device you're using, ensure that your operating system is upgraded. And also any software you're using, make sure that it is actually latest version, so that it doesn't have the open vulnerabilities which could allow malware to pass through. Yeah. So we just covered one, but any questions on malware? No? Okay, so let's go to phishing. I think we covered phishing already. Just let's check what exactly the phishing do, right? There is a difference between a focused phishing. There is also something called smishing. You might know SMSISHING. So what that means is actually they send so interesting mails, right? It looks at ads. Think about this. Now, this is the time of Diwali, and people are actually interested to buy something new. So they plan around it. There's a bumper offer coming in, and you got a discount of 90% on this, right? And seems to be originated from a known website, and you click on it, right? And practically, it is not coming from Amazon.com, but it might be Amazoni.com, AMAZONE.com, or MSZN.com, something, right? So there are chances that these phishing attacks happen, mainly for the financial aspect. Please understand that majority of the cases phishing happens around finance, but not necessarily all the time, right? Another scenario is actually what we observed is HR. When your year-end reviews happening, so it looks like you got this bonus, you got huge bonus and you got this free tickets, etc., coming from HR. So you are actually anxious to see that, oh yeah, I was supposed to get this, so I got this, but actually tended to be not from the people you are expecting. So these are the kind of thing you need to be careful on. So this phishing is done to actually acquire user password, and there's a technique called, there are various techniques used, but the idea here is this is one technique will never never go away. Every year it is going by 30%. So phishing is through which people get this sensitive information like username, password, account number, etc. So be careful whenever somebody is asking for account number. So it could be stealthily, silently collecting, or somebody is actually, as a way I said, harvesting the information, or third could be impersonating, right? Any of these cases could land in there, right? Yeah, Akash, you're right. Phishing is usually done by cloning a website, right? So it looks like a hdfcbank.com, etc. When you click on, you get a mail saying, your password is expired. Why don't you come and change? And then you click on that. It would go to that. It might not be HDFC. It might have had have something else, right? So that it's not actually going to the bank side. Mainly, what we observed in the beginning was it's all about finance. Right now, they are also focusing about the HR related. They're also going about finance, what you can say, the sensitive information like health information. So they're not leaving there. Earlier, phishing used to be used for collecting the financial information. Now they are using for general to just pass on virus, worms, etc. Yep. Okay. Hope that is clear. The phishing. Okay. Any questions there before we go on to the next topic? Yeah. See, I told you Amazon. See, this is not Amazon. Maison Canada. Yeah. You got it. Name could be Amazon, obviously. But you see the address, it is not Amazon, maisoncanada.ca, but it looks like that, right? Anytime somebody is asking to change your credentials doubly, you make yourself doubly sure that it is coming from the genuine site. Okay. Another one, yeah. So those are the other points given here. So just see, nobody actually tells you dear client, right? There will be a name, generally hi, and your customer name might be there. And then nobody asks you to change the username password. So that's wrong. So all these things you need to be very careful about before you clicking on this page. Okay. Any questions before we move on to the next topic? No? Okay. Password attacks. Okay. I think most of the people know it, right? What is password attack? I'll ask you one question. What is the perfect password? An example of a perfect password. This much you can make it, yeah? Please click in, gives your answers there. This is very easy. Now, is it password 123, right? Everybody knows. Why I'm surprised? Passphrase is perfect. Combination of letters, alphabets, numericals, and symbols. Yes. Great. So you know that. So all combination of numericals, characters, and symbols. Great. Alphanumerical plus special character. Great. So that's what it is. Yeah. Alphanumerical, special characters, and symbols, and all those things. You are all correct. So only one thing I want you to add is that make it memorable. So just don't make it like it should have alphanumerical, special characters, and then numbers, etc. Let me make it so complicated that I don't even understand. It is gibberish. So I don't remember. Since I don't remember, I write it down and put it on the wallpaper, or I put it actually on my book so that anybody can pick it up and use it. Or actually store it in a text file so that it could be known, right? So the best way to handle is like pick something which is a phrase and you know it. Think about your favorite game, maybe cricket, or think about your favorite actor, maybe Ritik, right? And then add some numbers to it. It could be a year which you know, or it could be a number about something, and some characters added to it, right? And I've seen most people using, instead of yeah, people use at the rate, instead of yes, people use 5, right? So think that combinations which you can understand, and so that it's easy for you to remember. That's the best way to say. I think you know it already. I don't need to speak about how to pick the password, right? So think about next is, okay, what kind of attacks happen in password, right? The one is the brute force attack. Brute force attack is actually try all the way, whatever the best possible method to attack it. And why people actually ask for 8 characters or 14 characters is because as the number of characters increase, the complexity to break it increases. Most people do not spend or invest in so much money to attack and get you a password, right? Unless you are worth of it. Let's think in that way, right? They are actually trying to get that, so they do almost all the type of attacks. So brute force is the way to actually identify all kind of possible combinations of a password. Think about 4-letter. It's easy, right? 2 power 4 is the number of combinations you can go through. Right? The next one is dictionary attack, right? They start with the dictionary names like is it a name or is it a place? Is it a known name? So whatever is in the dictionary is something which is easily copy pasted into a computer system. It checks on the dictionary words, all the dictionary words, to verify whether this is the password, right? That's called dictionary attack. And next is keylogger attack. Keylogger attack is about what keys you type mostly. Keylogger continuously record your logs, and then based on that, it will actually predict the possibility of you pressing a certain number, and then based on that, the attacks happen. It is little advanced. Yeah. So those are the 3 type of attacks. How do we stop that? I think we already said, change the password regularly, and you already know, make it alphanumeric. No dictionary, so don't use any dictionary based passwords, right? So that's the simplest method to speak about password attack. Next is DDoS, right? How many of you know about DDoS? Any idea? Any example maybe? No? Okay. I'll give you an example called WannaCry, right? So WannaCry is actually is a vulnerability which was there in multiple systems, which they used it to exploit. And then once exploited, you need to pay certain money. That is when they release your system, right? So think about NHS, which is National Health Science Department of UK. So the entire health systems of this hospital was actually locked by the hackers, and then because there is a WannaCry virus which is got infected, and they were able to attack it, right? And without so they have to actually make a payment in Bitcoin, then only they will release it. It's called a ransomware attack, right? That's another way of attack. So that's the denial of service, denial of service, right? Stopping a service to happen. Whereas distributed denial of service is actually sending a traffic so huge so that your network is completely down. Yeah, it happens whenever results come. You observe that, right? So when the IIT results come, that IIT results page is actually down because of the so much of traffic you all send it, right? Our IRCT page, which is Indian Railway System, during the peak hours between 9 to 10, it's always down because of the too much of traffic going on. That is not a DDoS attack. It is because of the capacity issue. But I am just giving you an example. So the denial of service, distributed denial of attack is like when multiple systems are sending heavy packages, heavy load of data on the network, so that the server is not going to respond, because in between the packets get dropped at firewalls or gateway routers, etc. It's not even reaching the server, right? So that is called DDoS. Yeah, hope you got it. Yeah, any questions there? Okay, so let's go. Okay, so the method is packet flooding. You saw that it's coming from multiple places, and you on a particular system, and those systems actually get down. Okay, cool. Okay, how do you prevent it? How do you prevent DDoS? Do it by actually doing a traffic analysis, understanding from where the what time the traffic is high, what time the traffic is low, and then doing some kind of capping on what level of data comes so that you are able to manage it. And traffic control is another one. I mean, when there is a threshold, right? You actually keep a threshold called, okay, this is 80% traffic. Anything above, I need to be cautious on. Why suddenly I am seeing like a 120% of traffic suddenly coming? So that you are cautious about the change happening on the network, and you can go and investigate whether the network traffic is genuine or not. Right? This is so let's imagine your network traffic goes like this, and suddenly it spikes, right? So again, it goes like this and suddenly spikes, and you find that in maybe in 5 minutes time, you find this kind of spikes coming in. You are like, you're so worried that what is actually causing these kind of spikes, right? So once you understand these abnormalities, and do investigate on um, what is causing it. Is it genuine traffic, or is it actually some virus sitting there and sending some packets abruptly, or somebody is trying to do an attack? So to do that, doing that analysis helps you recover from the DDoS attacks, right? Okay, and also improving servers. So system hardening is one thing. One more thing. This is the network part I spoke about. System hardening. If a system is actually having some vulnerability, which actually allows you to receive as much as messages it is collecting, but any machine will have a certain buffer, right? After that, the buffer overflows, and then system will crash when you're getting so much of data and it's unable to process. The processor cannot withstand, right? So there are mechanisms in which the systems could be hardened to handle the multi-threaded attack or multi-processor attack, etc. So this also could be handled by system hardening. Okay, so let me stop there and ask do you have any questions, guys? Okay, so you know what? We are just on the 4 and we are still yet to go through the ML. So let's make it faster. So the next one is the man in the middle. So man in the middle is, okay, let me ask. Anybody knows what is man in the middle? Yeah. Okay, can you give some explanation what is man in the middle? By the way, it's not the father who is saying, giving vows or making the marriage happen, no? Between wife and husband at the time of wedding ceremony. No, that is not the man in the middle. I know one guy funnily told me what is man in the middle in that example. So yeah, hacking information in the middle, pretending other user. Correct, Anshu? Communicating sender and receiver third party involvement. Yes, Rajesh. Intercepting info or manipulating the info between two parties. Wonderful. Impersonate a bank and acquires the credentials. Akash, cool. So I guess you know it, right? So what is the middle party? What does it mean? You are doing a transaction and passing actually doing a transaction. Suddenly somebody comes in the middle and then changes that amount from maybe 10,000 to 100,000. And not only does that, but also pass it on to a different account. Let's think about that, right? So you are doing a transaction with the bank right now, right? So while doing so, the man in the middle actually observes your transaction, your username, password, and then bank information. And then using that, the man in the middle actually passes that session and then asks for a different query, which is you might have actually checking for inquiry of what is my balance, let's say. Whereas the man in the middle actually what does ask is a transfer $100,000, whatever, right? And then he does it not to this account. Instead, he's actually transferring somewhere else, right? And you don't even know. You are just checking you're thinking that I just checked my bank account, everything looks okay, correct? So that is the what we can say the way the man in the middle happens. It also happens not just in the transaction level, it also happens when you are doing a, what we can say, seeing something or observing something, somebody sits in the middle and actually silently observes. So one is interactive, one is like, so you are doing a transaction where the attacker is actually listening and understanding, which is called recon, they say, right? Whereas the other state is man in the world actually passes some parameters, right? Parameters, and then sends the connection back and diverts connection of command control to somewhere else, right? So that those are the possible scenarios which you observe in man in the middle. Yep. Yes, Akash, it happens. These kind of attacks usually done on public networks. Yes, it impersonates banks and requires credentials. That's one of the use case. Yeah. So yeah, reconnaissance is collecting details or victim. Yes, reconnaissance is like a you are collecting information of somebody or someone, right? It's like spying. You are spying on something, collecting all this information, keeping it one place, collating it, categorizing it, so that you use it for a real action. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so how do we prevent it? Use encrypted tunnels, use encrypted websites. Just check for when you are seeing HTTPS, check whether there is a, when you see a HTTPS page, there is something called a lock, you know. Nowadays, if it is not properly certified, then automatically the browser will tell you you are using a page which is not trusted, or the certification is not valid. The current browsers, the modern browsers, actually already indicate the risk. But yeah, genuinely, if you are doing a very huge transaction, it's important to verify that also. Use the browsers which are known and which are patched and which are I recommend to say that you use that browser which are trustworthy. Don't go for browsers which are just randomly available. Even on your mobile, I recommend. We do a lot of transaction on mobile right now, so whenever you are using a mobile-based transaction, so make sure that that's coming from a genuine site and verify whether that is the one they referred in the bank. Let's say iMobile is actually coming from ICICI Bank. There is a chance that somebody else have come up with a similar name or similar kind of template. So it's important you validate that. Okay. Invest in VPN. Okay, that's for normal organizations. Okay. Okay, sorry for that cleanup. Okay, so drive by download. I think this is something like this is something very old technique, but works all the way. So which is like so you are doing something. Meanwhile, they actually keep some goodies all around, right? You're just walking on the lane. You find something very interesting, and you pick it up. It could be a USB token, which is actually having malware, or you are actually browsing on a website, and then there are certain catchy links, and you like it and you click on it, right? So these are all hooks to capture what you can say, capture attention and actually seek some kind of connection back to your systems, or do use it for alternatives, right? That's the simplest way to explain, right? So yeah, so think about this, right? So there is a WordPress page, and then there is something when you are seeing a blog, then you might find something very interesting, and you click on, and actually what it does is it might be downloading in the back end some information and passing it back as well. Yeah. So yeah, it's almost like phishing. However, active, by the way. It's not sending any mail, but keeping this beautiful sweet breads everywhere, so that you connect on it. Yeah. Careful on that. Okay. Next, malvertising. Okay, this is almost similar to advertising. Malware comes through advertisements, right? So you see the advertisers, and in the advertising itself, you find some kind of malware inside that, through which you get the malware. Yeah, that's the simplest way to explain. Yeah. Okay, Carol is asking what is SSL and TLS. Okay, SSL and TLS are two different technologies to make your website secure. You see here, I know this is a fake site, but still it's a site. So you see here there is something called HTTPS, right? This S is actually the SSL section. The SSL is actually to provide a secure layer, a secure session layer between the source and the destination, right? So there are certain version issues. The certain number of version could not be used. You need to use the latest version. The latest, the method is actually TLS based encryption from source to destination. So when you are doing a HTTP session, consider that, let's say you have a okay, for some reason my pen is not okay. Okay, your laptop is here, and then there is a server, right? On the server, when you are doing a transaction, it's always secure, right? It has a secure connection using the public and private key. That is secure by using the session credentials or session tokens. Again, session token, session window, and security of session is handled by the protocol called SSL, right? So the latest version the people are using is TLS. So that is what actually gives us a stronger security. Yeah, hope that answers. Karen. Okay, so we didn't go to the key part, which is machine learning, right? So how do we present? How do we prevent it? Ad blockers, you have to carefully check for ad blockers. You also use your common sense, obviously, to understand whether it is whether it is an ad or is it a malware, etc. You better use actually the malware engines, right? The other one is rogue software. I think you know it already, so I don't want to spend more time here. Before, I think we better spend time on AI. So it's a different method. The propagation happens through software. As I said, there is always a second link which comes, please update your software, or please add this software also, through which you get that. And then, so it's important that you update your firewall and then also have a proper antivirus, and generally do not trust anything you don't know. That's the simplest way, right? So now let's go to the use cases of the machine learning. How do we use machine learning actually? And then in the machine learning, how does it differ from the normal processing, right? How does it help actually? How do you use AI? Right? That's the question, right? So so majority of the softwares or majority of the tools of cybersecurity works on rule based, right? So think about a firewall, right? Firewalls will have a rule list of rules on which it actually says, yeah, this person is allowed, A is allowed, B is not allowed, right? So that's a rule written. C, allowed, right? D, after a particular condition, the particular condition is actually accessing for a particular location, then he's allowed. So there are conditions and situations. So access controls connected with, again, other areas. So you have rules to pass, right? Another way, that's about the access based. The next one is alerting. Alerts also happen based on the rules. Let's say, okay, if a person is actually trying to access with the wrong password by 10 times, alert me, right? So that's an alert when somebody is trying to try with the wrong password 10 times, then it's the rule based on which you are working. And then you might have written something like, okay, if the traffic is crossing around 90%, right? In a, what you can say, in the not normal window, which is late in the evening or early in the morning, it's not the business hour. So non-business hour, the traffic is increasing, then alert me, right? So that's another one. Or you might have written something like, authentication based, right? Think about authorization. So how do you do the authorization? Okay, Mr. X has permission to ABC databases, but no access on. So let's say user A have databases B, C, D access, right? So this is based on a rule saying, okay, so always A gets B, C, D, right? If somebody gets username password, they would be able to get it, right? So these are all rule based, right? So how AI helps, why AI is needed, right? So let's think about that. In the current scenario, so passwords alone cannot work, access rules alone cannot work, because there are multiple ways in which the activities are happening. So risk-based approach, behavior-based approach is needed. So for example, you regularly log in from a country called India, and suddenly you pop up, your access popped up from Nigeria, right? Which is not the regular case. But as per the rule, as in the previous case, right, what we mentioned is A has access to BCD databases, irrespective of what location he or she is coming from, right? Is it good? No, right? There is a condition. The behavior need to be observed, right? Second, it could be based on the behaviors like, oh, you know what? Every day A actually does is actually browsing and then providing some permissions or checking the configuration, etc. Certainly, on one day, A actually tries to create 100 different accounts, new accounts. Let's think about, right? This is a different behavior altogether. So these are all behavioral anomalies that will not be detected by rule-based engines, right? So that's where the behavioral modeling is increasing day by day. The behavioral modeling cannot be done by human, right, resources. It could be done by building data modeling, pattern analysis, and then also building certain level of machine learning through which we can do it, right? So that is where the changes are coming, right? So one of the thing is adaptive access, which I mentioned. So what does adaptive access means, right? So let's think about these scenarios as I mentioned. Mr. A is trying to actually create 100 accounts suddenly. So first 2-3 accounts got created. When it reaches to a 5th account, let's say, system creates an anomaly saying, you know what, I never seen you creating more than one account any day. So today I am seeing you have created 5 accounts in the last 10 minutes and you are going for 6th account. Can you give me one more authentication parameter? So authentication parameter may not be username alone. So now it will ask you some challenge questions, or it will ask you a OTP or something like that. So additional authentication is added to avoid such kind of behavior, right? So that's how the latest tools are working to avoid these behavioral issues. Yeah, it could be Google verification. It could be additional modeling. So do we have any tools to perform behavioral modeling? Yes, I work in Micro Focus. We do have certain tool called Interset, which is completely unsupervised AI. So it can actually bring all the way from millions of alerts to multiple number of what you can say the real incidents. That is done by the pattern analysis and understanding the behavior and coming up with a real intelligent what you can say conclusion. So yeah, there are tools just which does that. Okay, that's why we are here on this call, right? To understand how this works. Yeah. Any questions on the behavioral modeling? WannaCry is a ransomware. You are right. It is usually down by attacking system with large amount of data, causing it malfunction. Okay, I think I'm reading old messages. Okay. Okay, so next one is patch management. So the AI modeling can mitigate risks of new malware that has definite signature. So sorry. So general modeling, right? General patch management. So what you do is generally, how do you manage the patchwares? Patchware is you have a malware, and then you actually implement the pattern signature. Based on that, you do the patch management or upgrade it. Whereas zero-day attacks come in with very less amount of time, right? So if there is a new malware found and you do not have a signature to identify um, its behavior, how do you identify it? You can only identify by the behavior of the user. The way I'm telling you is, for example, there is an application again, X, right? It has a version v 1.3 or something, right? So system believes yes, it is correct, and everything is working perfect. However, the current malware, whatever came, can actually exploit v 1.3. Think about that. Then there is a chance that the malware can pass through, and then you are not able to detect the attack, right? The only way to detect is by behavioral modeling. So how do you know? Is based on what kind of actions this malware is doing, how it is different based on the previous behaviors, and based on that you can actually identify the anomalies. Okay, any questions there, guys? Okay, cool. So these are the most of the use cases. What we can identify malware, we can actually identify spam, and also we can classify the data, and we can identify vulnerability, and we can do threat intelligence as well using AI. Those are the use cases which you can implement, right? Let's think about this, right? The certain use cases or application. User authentication, we spoke about this earlier, right? So as I was just telling, so user authentication, somebody said OTP based authentication or a passwordless authentication. In the today's world, we are working in, right, what you can say, perimeterless network, right? And then anybody can log in and anybody can access anything right now, right? In that scenario, the new method came in called zero trust. Anybody knows what is zero trust? Okay, please keep typing. Zero trust is actually like a deny all we used to have in the old firewalls. Whoever worked on networks understand. So deny all, right? So you deny everything. You only permit anyone based on the everyone you verify, which means deny all and accept as and when they come and provide the trust as much as needed, right? So that's how the zero trust works in. So while you are doing, what does it mean? How you manage the user authentication? So you will be doing it based on the risk level, right? You identify the risk of the person, risk based on the behavior. The behavior looks similar, then you pass it through. The risk, if the behavior looks risky, then you ask for additional authentication. If it's actually highly risky, then you ask maybe one more authentication. You find that the risk is too high, maybe you drop the connection. You don't even give any access. So you drop the connection, ask for to start everything new, right? So this is called the risk-based authentication, which is getting onboarded right now. So you can search for risk-based authentication. Even Micro Focus have some tools who does that authentication based on risk. And next one, botnet detection, right? So if it is not a system, there is a bot sending the continuous attacks or continuous passwords, etc. If it is machine based, that's the way I said earlier, right? 10 password, wrong passwords in 10 seconds. Let's think about that. It's not humanly possible, right? It's only possible through machine, right? So there are some machine related aspects which would work out. So the botnet detection is actually right now handled by CAPTCHA. So you might see CAPTCHA coming in. People ask, okay, you saw the CAPTCHA, type it in. That is to identify that whether you are a person or a machine, right? Machine works much faster. So adding a CAPTCHA there actually slows you down. So you are reading it and then typing it and then pressing a button. So you are adding a certain delay in the processing username and password. So there is a delay which gets added, and also it is capturing some information which bot cannot detect. So that's the way to address. Another way, incident forecast, right? So when somebody is actually doing the incident investigation, it's quite complicated if you do not know, as I was saying earlier, which stage they are in. Are they in reconnaissance stage, or are they in command and control? What level the attack is happening? You can figure out by using AI and ML. Also used in IPS and IDS, also used in spam filter and fraud detection, right? Fraud detection is again the financial transaction analysis, right? So when you find financial transactions, the transaction crosses a certain limit. It could be based on the number of access, number of times you are accessing, or place from where you are accessing, or the amount of transaction you're using. There are multiple triggers are there, which actually helps understand, does it look like a fraudulent transaction? Based on that, it identifies. It's not completely 100%, but at least understand the anomaly. Based on the anomaly detected, they actually ask for additional authentication or additional approval. Yeah, I know we covered a lot in this last 30 seconds. Any questions there? Does the AI use existing penetration tool? Yes. Yes, Akash. Yes. See, AI is a kind of a enhancing engine. It doesn't mean that you are doing anything. We are not going to stop anything what you are using already. So you're just adding additional shield onto that, right? So this additional shield is actually to help you. Let's say, think about your question on penetration testing, right? So what happens in the penetration testing you are doing? There are a lot of false positives, right? So you do a pen test, right? You got maybe 1,000 false positives, right? How do you understand whether these false positives are false or true, right? So that requires certain kind of exploitation to check whether true, untrue, etc. So this could be done by machine learning based on the previous history of how this particular vulnerability might have reacted to a particular scenario. So to reduce the false positives in the application security testing, people use AI and ML. As I said, other areas AI and ML could be used is to do the behavior analytics, as I mentioned, and threat intel you can do, and you can actually identify the fraud. So those are the use cases. Intrusion detection and prevention. So intrusion detection, as we just said, right? So think about intrusion detection as your gateway and your number of transactions coming inside, right? So adding an ML for your network flow will help you understand the anomalies much faster, because it understands your network. It was able to guess the pattern, can also predict what will come later. So based on that, it can help you understand whether it is a genuine access or it is ingenuine, right? It's almost similar to the place what I mentioned. Is it a false positive or is it a positive case? Okay, hope that helps, Rajesh. Okay, cool. Thank you. So next, let's go to the next one. So use cases. So let's see some industry use cases. We already discussed all this, but let's pick each one to understand, right? So first one is detect malicious activity. We spoke about this. So you understand the difference between the general behavior and how is it different, and based on that, you guess that. So it could be a location, it could be an IP address, it could be the actions you do, the action the user is doing, or it could be the actions your system is doing, the type of activities you perform on a particular application. So all these actually combinedly help you identify the malicious activity. AI-based threat mitigation. So AI-based threat mitigation is the one which we earlier mentioned, right? You can identify, understand threats much faster because see how AI works. AI works based on the number of models you supply, right? How much learning it can do. So it can mitigate much faster the threat, or it can understand the threat level much faster and better, because it can read millions of threat actors and tell you where is it, what is it coming in, right? So it may not mitigate, but it actually at least reduces the time it takes to understand the threat level. Okay, keep it that way, right? So next one is ML to analyze mobile endpoints. So machine learning also helps you to analyze the endpoints which are mobile. It could be laptop, it could be mobile. You can actually understand the same story what I mentioned earlier. It can actually understand the malware and connect it back with your end user behavior, and use these two as a combo to identify the patterns which are looking suspicious. Based on that, you can understand that your laptop got infected by a malware. It is not a genuine person doing the action, but it is actually coming from a system which got infected. It's not the Rajesh who is actually doing this, the privilege action, but the system which got infected, through which the privilege escalation happened. That's the kind of scenario. So analyst, this is the best thing which happens for analysts, right? So a lot of time you spend in understanding the events and converting them to real incidents. It takes a lot of time. Those who are working in analyst area understand the time it takes. So having a machine learning helps you reduce the time to detect and time to respond. It actually improves the efficiency of the analyst in general. Right? Same applies to the last one. It enhances the analysis. One is it augments, it adds one more person sitting next to you and doing it. Second is what human cannot process it faster, the machine can help you in doing it. Right? So I know I spoke a lot about it, but the point, one more thing we need to also understand is machine is machine, right? It's based on what you teach and what it learned, right? So it can't decide, and do not allow it to decide. I think decision making capability, according to me, should be with human, and then we should ensure that we are doing that. There is one more concept called okay, so that will be in the futuristic. I don't know whether it is there, but let me speak about it. Something called biasing, right? So biasing is like based on the data pattern, it will actually already preempt an answer, which is actually judgment by itself. Let's think about, there are 10 people in the classroom, and then out of which 6 people answered in a way and 4 people answered differently. One person actually given a really critical response. So 1 in 10 cases, it will be understood as a kind of a something called overlay. I mean, it's actually outlier. If it is outlier, and AI will not treat it, will not consider it, right? Think about outliers among us, right? Sometimes we give so much critical opinion, but at times that's really correct, right? So there is a chance that AI might miss the outliers, which are genuine, which are real, which are correct, right? So that is something which a pattern analyzing machine cannot understand, only human can understand, right? So that is where human cannot be replaced completely. So we continue to keep machines or artificial intelligence to improve the productivity, efficiency, etc. But end of the day, humans are much better. I know those are just my thoughts, right? So what do we see in future? What exactly we believe the future look like? Right? Sorry, it went to the last slide. So AI security framework, which is like the security controls today are all, or we can say, not dynamic. They are not. They are all book-based. Practically, they are not dynamic enough. So having a AI-based security framework will help dynamically solve problems which are coming in the current increasing threat landscape. Another factor is the framework to access use of AI to handle threat actors. I think this is already happening. This is not a feature, this is already here. Understanding the threat actors better, building a framework. I think you can read something about MITRE, MITRE. It's a framework which actually understands the threat actors, understand the behavior patterns and what level we need to work on. So that's the framework. It's not a AI, but a framework already exists. Only what AI does is use this framework to understand and build the pattern around and know where the actor is sitting. As I was saying, there are multiple stages of attack. So AI can understand on the framework where exactly the attack is happening, at which stage it is. So it's already there. Next one, AI-based security solutions. So right now we spoke about controls, and there is also solutions. We can come up with certain solutions which can answer automation, or it could be a response solutions. So there are various solutions which can be built. And also once you have the modeling, then there will be maturity model to figure out which solution is better, what level we are operating, etc. Yeah. So that closes all of my slides, and we are in the last slide, which is thank you slide, I guess. Yeah. Any questions you have before we close? Hope I am able to answer most of your questions while we are talking, but happy to hear your opinions, and then any questions you might have, I'm happy to take. I think we have 10 more minutes left. Okay, that's a good question, Akash. How can we get into cybersecurity? What to study? So, how do you get into cybersecurity? If you are not a cybersecurity person, you have taken this session first time. My recommendation is, maybe since this session is happening from Edureka, I recommend you to go to Edureka website and check for the courses. Maybe let me just show the screen. Give me 1 minute. Yeah. So there are certain courses already available on. I hope you can see the screens, right? Yeah. So you check for cybersecurity. There are courses available. Some are free, some are not. On Edureka. Similarly, the courses are available in other sources like edX, which is a university-based course material where you can actually review the content, but if you need a certification, you need to pay. EDX, right? And Cybrera is another one, and then Coursera. So there are a lot of online sessions available right now. You can start there, but you are looking for a certification. There are certifications like CompTIA Security Plus, right? That's one certification which you could go for, or you can go for what we can say the course from I think that's one of the course which you can think about starting. Or my recommendation is, or CEH is another one which if you are interested to do an ethical hacking side, right? That's another course to think about. So yeah, there are a lot of certification courses, but it's important to choose what you like. Are cyber attacks using AI make them more evasive to cybersecurity? Yeah, I didn't see the name, but yeah, yes. So the reason why we are using AI is because our attackers have started using AI from quite long. You know what? as you might have heard, right? Thick as thieves. Thieves always go in groups. So the attackers work together. They use AI, they use ML. They come up with completely evasive malware, which you can't figure out what it is, and they can make um, they can make certain software which you can't understand. So that's why it's important for us to use AI and ML in our own way to protect ourselves, to defend from these kind of threats happening. Okay, hope that answers. I know I see the name as a Dureka guest, but hope that answers. The problem for me is that many of the good courses are not free. I agree. Many of the things which are very interesting and useful, they are not free. You might need to invest a little. That's when even you consider that's valuable, right? So yeah, to me, it's not about whether it is free or not free. It's about what is that exactly you wanted to learn, and what is that you want to, what you can say, what you want to actually capture as a knowledge, or whether you are doing it for a particular purpose. Then you will figure it out. There are ways and means you can identify which is the best course. Is it worth enough for me to spend this much money, right? Google is the god, right? You just analyze, understand which course is better and pick it up. Akash, is it possible to have the slide, or you giving us the slides? Yeah, the slides will be shared along with the video recording by the Edureka team. Interested by parents don't support me. So maybe you speak with the financial numbers, and also the job market availability in cybersecurity. So with the digitization going on, and most people are working on digital world right now, even the colleges, schools, and then small roadside shops are using internet and then systems nowadays. So since so many people are using data and systems, so it's imperative that the attackers are growing. So there is a huge demand on cybersecurity professionals. So think in that way. Just search for some analytics on cyber jobs, cybersecurity jobs, and what is the demand on market. You will get to know. Certainly, I heard that it is around 3 million positions which are open across the globe, and it's growing. The numbers are growing. And one more thing which I keep hearing is security is the profession where there is a job security, right? So I recommend, if you are interested, pick it as a point to learn, and also take some projects where you understand, get some practical knowledge, and then there are labs available online with which you can understand this a little more, and then earn the experience you're looking for. Yes, Rajesh, I'll give that feedback to the team that we would have added Cyberkill chain. So the reason why I didn't added Cyberkill chain is it's too much for those people who don't know, who don't understand. But for sure, that's a great feedback, Rajesh. We will ensure that it gets added in upcoming cybersecurity sessions. Can you please suggest labs for this course? Not sure, but I don't know exactly whether there are, maybe you need to check for free labs. I think there are certain labs available. I don't know exactly right now, but I recommend you to, as I said, my favorite god, Google. Yes, online labs, you're right. Okay, we have 2 more minutes. Any last questions before we close? Okay, so that's great. Excellent, guys. Thanks for being an interactive audience. Appreciate that. And it's a great session. Hope you got some valuable information from here. And it's useful for you in your career as well as aspirations towards cybersecurity. Look forward to see you there sometime somewhere. Otherwise, stay safe and stay healthy. Bye.